Good morning. This is Talking Devils, the leading independent Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Barton, joined by two of my favourite people. First of all, David Murphy, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. After that fantastic win. Title charge is on. Let's go.
Yeah, finally turning around the curse that you had. No, not saying that you're completely to blame for the failings of the last season, but you did have an horrendous record.
Yes. What was it? Like 3 wins all last season, 14 home games, I think it was. Amazing.
Yeah, it was miserable.
But I've had a 2 out of 2 this year. I wasn't at the
Yeah.
Arsenal game. Wasn't my fault. So I'm 2 out of 2. You're welcome.
The concerning thing is that Dave's good run of form recently has been sitting next to me at Old Trafford, which means I have to put up with him until such time that we stop winning and he becomes the curse again, which won't be long, knowing Dave. Anyway, we're also joined by Manchester United legend Paul Parker. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm fine, thank you. I've gone for the comfort of sitting on the floor rather than having to lean forward in a settee.
Nice. Okay. That's well, I'm sitting in a chair. Dave, how about you?
In a chair as well. Yeah. It's all good.
Traditional. We're just going for the traditional chairs. All right. Let's talk about Manchester United 2, Chelsea 1. What a weird game it was. I mean, first of all, getting in was fun because the rain in Manchester, it is bad at the worst of times and at the best of times. But it was torrential on Saturday. It was really, really bad. I've only experienced anything like that once at a game. And I think it was Arsenal a couple of seasons ago. And that wasn't really... The Arsenal thing happened right at the end of the game. It was a torrential downpour. It just came out of nowhere and flooded at the outside of the ground. This wasn't that bad in terms of that, but like consistently throughout the game, it just absolutely chucked it down throughout. In fact, it was strange to walk out of the game afterwards, Dave, as we did, and walked out and the tunnel was dry. I'm like, what? How was this even possible? There should be rivers around this place. There were rivers around Old Trafford outside. That was half of the chaos, but there was so much more on the pitch. After just a couple of minutes, Chelsea's goalkeeper Sanchez was rightly sent off. For once, no real complaints or controversy over a refereeing decision. Cleaned out Mbeumo, who ran through on goal from a good old-fashioned punt down the pitch. Chelsea responded. They had to respond by making 2 changes, actually, which I found was strange. You know, you bring off a player, bring on the goalkeeper, but they made another sub at the same time. Then they were forced into bringing Cole Palmer off. Sorry, Cole. Sorry, Colton. I don't know who I'm offending there. Sorry, Cole. But so he came off after 20 minutes. By that point, United had already scored. Fernandes diverting in a Dogu header. And then shortly after that, Casemiro made it 2-0. Luke Shaw actually pretty brave going in because that ball was hoofed in the air. Shaw giving himself an instant headache, heading it across for Casemiro. You could watch Seshko watching that ball and he was almost like you could witness in real time how devastated he was that it wasn't falling for him. But also, I think that was the more instinctive side of Casemiro. I think that was like an early stage Premier League player kind of watch. It's like, oh, this is how fast it goes in the league, is it? Casemiro doing really well with the header. And then, obviously, then we had the Casemiro sending off. I think the first one can't really have a problem with the booking. The second one, a little bit of controversy over because he seems to win the ball perfectly, but the offence is for the pulling. He shouldn't be making that tackle in those conditions when, in 2 minutes' time, it could be brought off and allow United to dominate the game. United never really did, and I was saying to Dave at some point when it was 2-0 and we were with 11 men, I'm like, do you know what? We haven't had a good emphatic win for a long time, and this could be an opportunity for that. It could really boost the confidence of the team. But then United did what United do. It's not a Ruben Amorim problem, it's a United problem, really, and it's afflicted us so many times over the past year. Allowed Chelsea to get back into it. Casemiro did get sent off. They even, he had an opportunity at half time to sort of take control of that 2-0 lead and and do what you want with it. Like, you can be proactive in terms of how you're going to counter-attack that, but we went really reactive. We went sat back. He brought off Šeško for Ugarte, which is a very telling indication of how he felt about the performance and the result. Sat back. Chelsea obviously then were encouraged by that. Had not a lot of it because they were still missing a lot of those attackers that had been brought off earlier on. Notably, they didn't bring on Garnacho for their attack. He just spent his game getting barracks. Absolutely tidal wave of abuse from the Stretford end. But then right near the sort of 80th minute or so, Chelsea get a corner. They take it really quick. United switch off with criminal, allowing Reece James, one of the best crossers of the ball in the country, to do what he wants. And it's a training ground goal, isn't it? James crosses, Chalobah heads it in. They had one little moment towards the end where Bayindir flapped it across. United had a chance to do Bruno, but really a non-entity of the second half, and it promised to be so much more. So you come away from the game thinking, like Amorim saying afterwards, he's pleased with the urgency, Paul. And there was an element of, United had to win the game, and they did win the game, but it's so difficult when, first of all, if it's 11 against 11 and United are winning those conditions, it's still difficult to ascertain any kind of real, like I said, this is a direction from this point on. This is a really good boost. And especially considering the way it was like 10 men and, so in some respects, there's even a little bit of deflation that United didn't really go on to emphasise their advantage and really crush home a 4 or 5 goal win from that position. You blame Casemiro for that and not the manager. It's just really difficult to know where we stand, apart from saying, all right, well, we've won against Chelsea, and that was the most important thing after being defeated against City. But when we've spent so long, the manager included, going, it's not necessarily about the results, it's about the performances. You take it all in one bite, don't you? And well, how are you feeling this morning after that game? Because it was an eventful game, but I still come away from it thinking, I'm not quite sure what to make of it.
It is that way. I think it was down more. It was a good start. The way they started was really good. It reminded me a bit like the Arsenal bit. And again, I'm thinking to myself, go and make it count, make something happen. But it was still, I don't know, it still wasn't right. Chelsea, we talk about Chelsea, about the money they spent, the amount of players they've got. Chelsea, the money they've spent, incredible amount of money. We should be talking about them and winning the league.
Yeah.
At the moment, we talk about Chelsea and you don't know if they're going to win any game they play because they don't grab hold of a game. And when the manager made that double one with the goalkeeping situation and Neto, if you're Neto, you're asking a question. If you're the Chelsea captain, you're asking a question as well. Why do you go and take off a player that if you're down to 10 men, you're looking for an outlet? You got Neto, maybe the quickest player on the pitch. Then you got João Pedro, who most probably in theory, all round, was maybe the best player after that game finished because his skill was incredible with the ball, how he holds people off. But he had no runners. He had nothing. The substitution for Chelsea bringing on the lad Tyreek George, you think, why did he go and do that for? But then you look at United and you think to yourself, they're in a good position. They don't really take the game on. Chelsea don't look like they want to score a goal. I think Pep's ex-number 2, he's called Poundland Pep, they call him. Chelsea fans, one of the names they call him. He's still trying to play yesteryear Man City football while Pep's gone a little bit more gung-ho. You can't go long. Don't put the ball in the box. You're losing 2-0, but don't let anyone know that you're panicking. It was quite poor from Chelsea, but that should have offered the opportunity for United to show a little bit more and go and show people that they've got something about them to go and take, a club that they talk about as a big club, spent a lot of money, go and take up the task to make people think for your next fixture. But they didn't do enough. And Chelsea never really done enough. Like you just mentioned, the goal and that one when Bayindir pushed out middle of the goal and caused a melee just in front of the penalty spot. That was it. And that was really it, really. Chelsea didn't do enough for me to ask questions. if they'd asked questions, then I think there would have been a problem, as we know, we've seen it. So I think it is one of those games, and I hate the statement, a win is a win. The most important thing now is that the game that people have doubts about are the next two fixtures, because already we've seen the two big name clubs. United have performed in a way. It's the other games they struggle. Brentford away, Sunderland at home, and Sunderland. I think if you watch the game yesterday, Sunderland are a difficult team.
Yeah,
they are so athletic. They're going to be difficult because we know Manchester United's weakness is dealing with sides who have got athletes and physical presence. They can't deal with it. So something that game there was never going to put him under great. He's always under pressure when you manage United and you lose a game. But that game wasn't going to cause as much problem as if we go and lose to Brentford or maybe even go and lose to Sunderland. They're the ones that people are ready to jump off the back of Wayne, to be perfect, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I still felt like it was important for him to get that win because of the way that the narrative has been building that week. There always is. I was saying to Dave before the game how the rest of the Premier League seems to be playing its usual season of like, these are the months and this is the race and this is the way it's going to end. Whereas United, it's a drama every single week. Every game is an occasion. Every game that United plays the biggest game of the weekend, and it's got all the drama and narrative around it. And it's Amorim's responsibility to basically get the harness on that and go like, all right, use this to his benefit. It's a very difficult thing, but if you don't do that, you risk being swallowed by it. This is the responsibility of every single manager who has become United manager since Sir Alex Ferguson obviously was the master of doing that. But Mourinho, you would think would be. I think he struggled with the actual dramatic license that people take on. Like they can make every game into a catastrophe. Ole, apart from maybe the last 5 weeks or so, I think Ole was the one who calmed it down. It was like, all right, well, this is just a run of fixtures. Can you remember there were runs of fixtures where we wouldn't win, and then there were those games where we wouldn't be defeated for like 12 games or something like that, because he just had a good understanding of not making it into a drama every single week. But that's it around United, and it was definitely a soap opera on Saturday night, Dave. In fact, if you got the soap opera, you might have been able to have a good wash with the rain. Not you. I'm talking people in general. I'm sure you've had a good wash since you've been home. I won't cast aspersions on your cleanliness. What did you make of the win? What did you make of the win? What did you make of the performance? You said after we came out of Burnley, like, a win's a win. But I didn't quite get that statement from you this time round. So what have you made of it? Because it's a lot to unpack. So we're like 48 hours from the game, 36 hours from the game. So how are you feeling about it now?
Well, I know Paul doesn't like the cliche wins a win, but Amorim needs to start just getting wins, regardless of how he gets them. He's made a few statements earlier in the week about he's not going to change his system. The Pope won't even make him change his mind. And as you and I were discussing walking up to the ground, he just needs wins then. If he wants the pressure off, just get a win then. That was pretty much the only positive, which is a big positive from Saturday's game. I was still baffled by a lot of the things that happened in the game. We went 2-0 up. I think the Casemiro second yellow was an absolute farce. I think the referee was so poor, and he always is poor. He wanted to even up that game at some point, and he did. That said, the substitutions that Amorim made, had me convinced he didn't want to win that game. It was just all about, I don't know, I don't want to keep bashing him when he wins because I bash him when he loses, but he did everything possible to throw away those 3 points. Bringing Ugarte on for Šeško and not bringing on Mainu when it was screaming out for a player of his ability out there. He basically told Chelsea, we're going to sit back for the next 40, 45 minutes and you can just come at us, which is a terrible, terrible game to play when you're Manchester United, because we can't defend for shit these days. Right up until the second goal, after we got the second goal, I thought, here we go. It's going to be one of those rare occasions where at half-time we're really, really confident of going and winning this. And then obviously Casemiro got sent off and that put us in the mire. That said, I agree with Paul, the amount of money that Chelsea have spent and they rolled up there like a mid-table team. You know, they just spent most of the game complaining to the ref, falling on the ground, trying to get into, you know, fights with United players. And his substitutions, the Chelsea substitutions, when the goalkeeper went off, was bizarre. I mean, I can't remember the last time when a goalkeeper got sent off. The manager basically changed his whole, you know, practically his whole formation, brings on 2 players and changes the style of play. That baffled me a little bit. But United, you know, there was some fantastic performances out there. And Mbumo, Fernandez were absolutely immense. De Ligt was, for me, man of the match. But you know, we 3 points at this even at this early stage of the season. 3 points is 3 points. But you know, again, I agree with Paul. I think it's the next 2 games, like it was with the middle 2 games in the 5 we just played, are the most important for me. We've played Chelsea, we played City, we played Arsenal in the first 5. For me, it was the games in between that which was going to show, you know, what level we're at, because each season we show we are capable of beating what's deemed the better sides in the league. It's the weaker sides is where we struggle, and the next two games will show us where we are. You know, it's amazing. It's mental that we're sitting here saying Brentford away, which is always tough anyway. But I am concerned about Sunderland at home. And imagine thinking that. I mean, imagine thinking you're nervous about the team that just came up, because we don't know whether we're going to get it now, that game. But in regard to the Chelsea game, listen, we got over the line. I just felt that we made it, like Manchester United do in the past couple of years, we make it very, very difficult for ourselves to get over the line. But we did in the end, and you know, I'm a happy camper. The record of Chelsea not beating us since, 2012, 2013 rolls on.
You do look delighted. Sideline Circus says, lack of supply will waste Šeško at United. So let's talk about Šeško, because he was a bit lost in the chaos on Saturday night. There was the one moment where Ahmad got into space on the left and never squared it. His decision making. Ahmad's had a poor start to the season as he's finding his way alongside Mbumo, and it's not helped by the fact that he's been played in that front two on the left-hand side, while Mbumo does quite well. Like Dave said earlier, he's had a really good start to his United career. Šeško obviously found it a little bit difficult. He was ball watching for Casemiro's goal as well, which I'm not criticising him. I'm just like, maybe a more aggressive, a more hungry, proactive player. Maybe he's a bit like, there's a bit of the Højlund about him early on. Like, wow, this stage is really big. I'm not used to the frenetic nature of how this moves. Which you can see in Gyökeres as well. Funnily enough, the two high-profile strikers who moved to the Premier League this season. You watched him yesterday. He was like, "Oh, I'm in a football match. What's going on around me?" You get that feeling with Šeško sometimes. I know it sounds like I'm being a little bit disrespectful. It just looks like the game's moving around him and he's not joining in. Sometimes he is as well. I don't want to be too critical. I think it was Šeško flicked on for Mbumo to run through for the defining moment of the game, basically. So,
but he won a few headers in and around before that. Wayne, what he did at the Etihad as well is winning headers. The difference is that something might have been said from last week to this week, is that no one was gambling. Yeah. No one gambled. No one believed he was going to win the header. And to be honest, we had Højlund there, and Højlund wasn't winning any headers. No. But he's winning headers quite easily. And by the way, he should do, because he's a big man, by the way. And he actually jumps. Big fellas don't think they have to jump. He actually jumps, so he's not going to lose that many headers. And then Bueno's kind of done, which he would do, his willingness to run and gamble. And that's the reason why the keeper got sent off. No one runs, and everyone goes, oh, he's won a header. But because he's gone and done that, and to be honest, if that happened on a Sunday morning and you was watching your mates play and they go and score, they go straight through like that, you would question them, wouldn't you, as an amateur pub team, for people to run straight through the middle of you. And these two centre halves, I did the Chelsea Fulham game, and just listening, they were trying to bum those two up as maybe the best pairing in the Premier League. Tosin and Chalobah.
Yeah.
So no, it weren't. Shalabar never come on, did he? At that time, I don't think. Yes, he did. Yeah, Shalabar Toasting come on. It was him and Shalabar together, and they go straight through the middle. That is suicide stuff. When that happens, straight away you just take yourself as a player. I don't think I'll be playing next week.
So are you worried about Šeško? I mean, we're 5 or 6 games in. He's not scored yet. The front line has moved around a bit. You know, Cunha is obviously going to be the starter when he's fit. Where Ahmad fits into that is a different kettle of fish. Dogu's not quite found his ability to cross just yet. Was not quite that balance on the right. So, I mean, the point is about the lack of supply. You worried about that?
Just mention on Dorgu, everything seems all right of him until maybe we can take the crossing responsibility away, then everything will be fine, won't it, at this moment?
Yeah.
Or if he could cross the ball like Juve at West Ham, then you've got yourself a player that would be top class.
Yeah.
Really top class. That's the difference. Šeško one, he personally doesn't worry me. It's everything around him that worries me. Because again, you can't have 2 centre forwards come along and they both seem to not get a lot of the ball when everyone's going, oh, he's not getting into the game. That can't happen. There must be something else going on. You mentioned about Ahmad wouldn't square the ball. We've seen already, if an early ball goes in, Mazraoui done it early. He put a ball in very early, and I think it was started with the goal because of that, because he just delivered the ball really early. An early ball's better than a late ball. An early poor ball is always going to be in behind rather than what you deem a great ball when you can get everything nice, your body in shape and get height on it. Sparky used to absolutely want to strangle Andre. A few times he's walked across to Andre with a ball in his hand and he's nearly knocked him out, pushing it into his chest, telling him where he wants the ball and he wants it early. And won't do it. Man City are doing it now. Pepper's changed Pep ball. He's got a little bit more direct. We've seen that. Get the ball in the box early and you will find Šeško will be around. If the manager's seen his montage, then he'll see a player who's quite instinctive in what he does. Get the ball to him. We've seen when the ball goes into him, technically, he's far better than a lad at Arsenal. Miles better than him. The only reason why he's not getting a lot of grief at the moment is, I think, because the lad at Arsenal, he might have scored goals, but he's been poor. I actually was sitting watching at Arsenal. Well, I wasn't really watching it because I was sitting here watching TV because I can't watch Arsenal. I just can't watch them. They bore the life out of me. And I've gone back in the kitchen. I said to my boy, I said, is he still on the pitch? He goes, no, I think he's come off. But they mentioned then at the end, I saw him in the last 5 minutes going back and getting the ball. He doesn't touch the ball. He just doesn't. But Šeško is trying. And you could see if the manager gets Cunha's back now and he's got Embueno who has played well. I think you can see there's something about him. You don't know what's going to happen next. He suits Manchester United. He will get picked. Every time that he gets the ball, you feel as if something's going to happen. And he plays with his head up all the time, looking around to what he can do next. And I think something will happen. But as long as he's utilised, they've got to get the ball into his feet. Not think about it, just instinctively, just go and do it. Because he is a good player. I mean, he is, everything about him tells you he's far better than Højlund. But the same problem with Højlund, you have to give him the ball, and they won't give him the ball for some reason.
Yeah, no, I'm with you completely, especially on the upgrade scenario. I feel like when we brought Højlund and Xerxes in, it's very quick, able to see very quickly that Højlund needed confidence and he needed to grow. I don't feel like see that with Šeško. I feel like, I'm not saying he's a finished product by any means, but there's something in there that's much more polished than the 2 previous players that we signed in there. I think you're right about Mbeumo as well. He's kind of like, he's got the Anthony trick of cutting in and shooting and curling with his left foot, but instead of the spinny thing, he actually does things that affects things on the football pitch. Like he can run with the ball, which is a surprising and welcome difference for a winger. But on Šeško, Dave, how are you feeling? I mean, you weren't on the back of Xerxes and Højlund early on. I think you more or less said what Paul said there in terms of like needing the service and wanting them to be given a chance in a good team. So I presume that's where you are with Sesko at the moment. Not worried, like what Paul said, not worried about him, but worried about what's going on around him.
Yeah, I mean, if we were sitting here and Sesko's, he's missed a bunch of chances, we could probably be a little bit negative towards him. But I mean, he hasn't had chances. That's the biggest problem, and I think it's a carryover from last season where some of our players just, I mean, without proving it, it just looked like they didn't want to give Hoyland the ball. They just didn't want to give it to him because the guy's confidence was gone, and it looks like that's carried over now in the way that we're playing right now. I know we got 2 new players in Cunha and in Mbeumo, but Ahmad has been really poor, and I love the guy. I think he's a fantastic talent. But I think he needs a little bit of time out of the team right now because his decision making in the final third is terrible. It really is. He keeps cutting back, and he's just not giving that killer ball right away like he was earlier on in last season. I've no concerns about Sesko yet because we haven't been able to judge him because he hasn't been given any chances. I feel bad for him. I do think that he is gonna start coming good because I like him a lot. I like the way he moves around the pitch. I like the way he looks for the ball. He wants the ball. He doesn't constantly have his back to goal. He wants to be moving forward every time. And I think you hit the nail on the head earlier on about the Casemiro goal. I think he's still trying to get into the pace of the Premier League, which a lot of players that come into the Premier League, if they're being honest, and a lot of them are in some interviews, 3, 4, 5 games in, they admit that they didn't realize how fast the game was. And I think he's starting to learn with each game. The key for me is to keep him in the team. I really believe that. I think Amorim needs to leave him in there, and we need to go with a top 3 of him and because he's not going to push Fernandes up with Cunha and Mbeumo. Now that Cunha's back, I think it's time that Ahmad got dropped and we left those 3 up front and gave them a run of 4 or 5 games, and I think we'll see the best of Sesko once that happens.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So a little bit of a appreciation nod for Bruno Fernandes. Scored his 100th goal at the weekend. Paul, you've been back and forth on him over the years. I've been back and forth on him as well about his effectiveness, but I mean, his contribution to United. When he first came in, United were crying out for a player of that ability, and he was transformational, especially in the COVID period. He really sort of settled in, and he was he knitted everything together. We needed that number 10. Pereira had played it before, and he came in that system in the 4-2-3-1 as the 10. He was just fantastic, and he was what we've been missing. And he was, we talked about him. Well, I said not you and I, but figuratively speaking, the fan base talks about him as the sort of new coming of Eric Cantona, which obviously was a bit of an overstatement, but it showed the appreciation for what he was contributing and what we've been lacking. He scored his 100th goal. There was a lot of talk of whether or not he'd move on in the summer. He's not playing in a position that's getting the best out of him. We've seen how that's affected his form this season. He's still trying. I mean, if you look at it, you look at the numbers, if you look at the data, all of the back up a player who's actually contributing quite well. But the eye test, you say no, you're not getting the best out of him in that role. Nonetheless, we could sit here all day and debate whether or not it's the right thing or not to move him on, or should we have accepted an offer for him in the summer. But just an appreciation for what he's contributed, Paul. He's definitely been, regardless of what we think about how good he's been or how effective he is now in that role, he's been one of the major plus points since Sir Alex retired, one of the few unqualified successors, and 100 goals is a good landmark for him. It's 2019 he arrived, so it's not a bad record for a player. I suppose maybe on par, considering he's been the penalty taker and free kick taker, but 100 goals is still a big achievement.
Yeah, and he's been doing that, playing in poor Manchester United teams as well.
Yeah.
No Manchester United teams that have had no consistency. Now it'd be interesting what he'd be like playing in a better Manchester United team, a Manchester United team that's going out looking to win league titles, where from the start they're mentioned at winning league titles because they don't get mentioned anymore about that. So he's done it playing in a poor United team, the man who on quite a few occasions has put on the cape to get Manchester United out of trouble. And so that tells you, what he's gone and done. But a lot of that has been him taking it on himself and doing it and stepping out of line to go and do it. And it's worked that way. When you look at it, you just say to yourself, the manager's got a system which doesn't suit him. He doesn't fit into it. If you're going to look at it, he's not one of the front three to sit him. He's not one of the ones to sit behind. And if you put him in the middle you put him in the midfield, then you need at least two disciplined players around him to fill that gap, knowing that he's going to go missing. He's going to step out of line. And that is the issue at this moment in time. Does he, for it to work, is the manager, because he's one of his countrymen, trying his best to work it, that he fits into it, trying to still fit that square peg into a round hole. So as long as Bruno keeps doing what he's doing and maybe getting United out of jail, he's always going to be wanted by the vast majority of fans for that reason. But there's people who will look at it and know that for United to go forward as a football team, to go on to prove themselves worthy of, I was going to say, competing for a Champions League spot, and thank God there's more spots to grab now, is that, Bruno is not going to be in that team. When we look at his age now, and there should be something prepared to go in there. Bruno is fighting against. Right. It may have been if they had assigned that player, that midfield player, during that period where the opportunity was to go and do it. Now they haven't gone and done it. The manager's he's got a tough time maybe until January, if he can go and do it then. And if he does go and get that player, who's going to become surplus requirement? What's going to happen then? What is he going to do? Because at the moment, everybody can play in that midfielder except Mainu. I know I've changed it there, but I still don't understand how Ugarte come on before Mainu at the weekend. Yeah. I was absolutely, seriously shocked when I saw that, and I'm just there, and I've been asked questions about it, and my answer was, well, it's seriously starting to look like that the manager just doesn't fancy him.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that. But I would say my one thing, in the interest of balance, is that he always said that Mainu was competing with Bruno, and bringing Ugarte on.
Sorry, Wayne. Sorry, I don't understand that. Mainu is not competing with Bruno. No one's ever going to expect Kobe to go out and be Bruno. You can't say that. He could maybe improve United, but in a different way to what Bruno's doing it. When Robbo was gone, when we was losing Robbo, all of a sudden a Roy Keane emerged. Did a Roy Keane become a Brian Robson? No, a Roy Keane just stayed as Roy Keane and grew as Roy Keane. And Manchester United had a different style that made the team better, but it suddenly made someone into a great player because he was such an effect on everything around. And that's what you do. You can't put those two in the same. You can't put them together. It's absolutely madness if that's what he's saying. If that's his excuse for Kobe not to be playing, it's weak.
No, I'm 100%, 1,000% agree with you, because I'm very high on Kobe. I'm just going on. If I'm giving the manager the benefit of the doubt, I'm saying consistency. He said a couple of weeks ago, Bruno's competing with Kobe, or Kobe's competing with Bruno. So bringing on Ugarte for Casemiro, that logically, I don't think, I'm not agreeing with the decision. I think it was a poor decision. All around us, when that decision was made at half time, everyone was like, very communally. The consensus is, what are we doing? Why is Kobe not playing? All of that. On the Champions League, this I'll come to you in a second, Dave, on Bruno. But on the Champions League, I was saying to Dave at half time on Saturday, I want to start a new podcast on this channel where Dave and I, or maybe someone else, can join in, where we just have one podcast 1 hour where we talk about how crap modern football is and like how we fix it.
Please let me join at some point. I would love to do that.
We'll have our Monday morning debrief, and then maybe another day we'll all join in and do grumpy old men on fixing football. The Champions League. What I want to talk about the Champions League just very quickly. Liverpool won the league last season, right? So they are worthy qualifiers into the Champions League. They're champions, and they've won the championship recently as well. 2 in 35 years or something. But there's still 2. Nonetheless, they've won 2 teams. Newcastle haven't won it since the mid-50s. Spurs haven't won it since the 60s. Who else are in? Arsenal haven't won it since 2004. So that's at least 20 years. So if you're adding all that together, maybe 140 years without a league title, possibly even more than that, probably maybe 150 years without a league title between the 3 of them. Then Chelsea and City, who are in it, who have only got league titles because of having artificial money pumped into them over the last thing. So if you go back to when they last won it without a league title, Chelsea were the 50s, City were the 60s. Do you know what I mean? So Liverpool are the only team with any kind of credence to be in the Champions League. And we've got 6 teams. 6 teams are in the Champions League. 6 teams are in the Champions League. It's the Champions League. It's the European Cup. It's the premium competition. Why?
Because they need to change the name. Any other industry, and people would have taken them to court over something like this. It's absolutely madness. I've got no interest in it. I didn't watch any of it last week. I didn't sit there and watch any of it because I've got no interest in it.
Yeah. Anyway, if you enjoyed that little rant, please let us know in the comments, and we'll go that extra stage and put this extra podcast that we're talking about. I really want to do it. I really want to spend like an hour, even though it's not to do with United, on like rules in football, finance in football, flipping saturation of media in football, all that sort.
I got one. Van Dijk, the best centre back ever to play the game. Exactly. That's another one we can throw in there.
Yeah, we've got a list of content to do. Anyway, JS says he corrected me earlier on Bruno arrived in January 2020, right? Just pre-COVID, that wasn't it? And then in the COVID, he played really well. And Manu must have lost Amorim's dog or something. Goodness knows what he's done to offend the manager. A quality player who should be in the team. Dave, Bruno Fernandes, 100 goals. As fans, Paul absolutely dead on with what he's saying. As fans, we look back and we go, since 2013, David De Gea was the man who... David De Gea, the goalkeeper, was the man who was the Brian Robson of the era. And even you go back to the 80s, Brian Robson was the Brian Robson. He was a player who was like, all right, well, he's the one man stopping this from being a disaster. The one man you look at him and say, thank God he's there. Otherwise, we'd probably be talking lower mid-table all the time. Bruno's not even been able to arrest that slide, really, because we've been lower mid-table for a little while. But he is nonetheless the player who's picked up the baton from David De Gea as the sort of figurehead of the era. And it is a bit unfortunate, isn't it? Because, I mean, at least David De Gea had the start of his time at United where he's won a league title. So he's got that. And Robson at the end where he won a couple of league titles. And Robson was Robson as well. He'd walk into an all-time 11 for United. Bruno probably wouldn't do that. That's not a slight on him. The competition's so great. What do you make of his contribution?
Oh, he's been phenomenal. 100 goals in 5 seasons, and he's not even a striker. And not only that, 100 goals in this era of Manchester United for any player, striker or not, is absolutely phenomenal. But most of those goals he's made and created himself, which should be added in too. I've said this a few times down the years. Without Bruno Fernandes, we would be in a much worse position than we were most seasons, with the exception of the couple that we finished in the top 4. But he's been absolutely phenomenal. I feel for him right now because he's not in his strongest position. And without going on to the negative side, I think we'll be lucky to see him last past next summer. I think United are going to cash in on him. And we'll probably get about 100 million for him, which will be phenomenal for a player of his years. But in regard to Manchester United and his career and what he's done so far, I mean, he's been the standout player, since the Fergie era, really. He gives everything. You've seen him on Saturday. He came off through pure exhaustion. He was just that last run he tried to do right through the middle. You could see his legs were gone at that point. But what an absolutely phenomenal player. Gives everything. He embodies everything Manchester United used to be. He wants to win. He is a winner, and never gives up, and encourages people around him. But like I said, it's just a shame that right now he's playing in a position that's not giving him his. We're not getting the best out of him, and it's through no fault of his own. It's like the whole Šeško thing. It's Šeško hasn't scored through no fault of his own. Fernandes isn't at the level he was over the past couple of seasons through no fault of his own. He's been put into a very poor midfield and being asked to carry the can. And let's be honest, he's doing an absolutely phenomenal job, but that's not his best position. But in regard to his career so far at United, I mean, it will be long remembered because he's absolutely phenomenal. He is. Like I said, 100 goals and 5, that's 20 goals a season on average for a player that's not even a striker. Unbelievable.
Yeah, good player. He's a decent player, Bruno. I will say, the comment about him running and looking knackered, it brought to mind Harry Maguire's run. He still ran faster than Harry Maguire's run in the second half. He looked like he was running in treacle.
Well, to be fair to Maguire, because we were on that side of the pitch, and we were pretty close. You could actually see it. If a face could say anything, it was like, "What the f am I doing?" Because you could see it, because he was running alongside. Who was he running? Was it Ahmad he was running alongside? I believe it was. And it was just like, I'm sure he was thinking to himself, what the hell is going on? Why am I up this far? Because as he ran, Ahmad just kept getting further and further away from him. It was like he was running backwards. It was, but Harry Maguire, what a game as well on Saturday. He was really, really good. So
I also, I'm not going to pull us back to this, but I'm just noting it for future episodes that when you said Bruno will go for 100 million, Paul raised his eyebrows. We'll return to that in months to come. I want to talk about, you talked about the Maguire having an improved game after the criticism that he got last week. Luke Shaw also played a little bit better. However, not noticeably better to talk about it, but Luke Shaw has talked about it after the match. And the comments are to do with Roy Keane's criticism, basically he didn't say anything bad. It was kind of like Keane's entitled to his opinion and everything like that. But I do wonder if it's just better to not say anything. I look at this generation of United team, and I know there is such a publicity around it that people are waiting for something to be said. And I understand that when things are bad and content has to be made, you have to present the players in a certain way. And when they play well in a game, then you build it around that. But it all builds into what I was saying at the start of the episode when we're talking about episodes of players, when you go like, all right, this week this is the villain, this week Rashford is being sent back, this week Rashford is doing perfectly and United have made a mistake, this week Amorim's getting sacked, this week is the best thing since sliced bread, all that kind of thing plays in. It's just this constant narrative changing that, like last week United have made a big mistake because they can't handle a character like Jadon Sancho, and this week he can't get on. He can only get on for the last few minutes for Villa. Luke Shaw, I'm talking about Maguire. You said last week, Paul, the perfect kind of example of a player who it's surprising that he's still at the club. He's obviously a backup defender, fine, no problem with that. But this bringing him on to be a hero, turning him into a bit of a cult hero, it almost feels like a bit of a not a backhanded compliment, but it almost feels like it's Schadenfreude. You're taking the mick a little bit out of it. Like Xerxes, me and Dave have argued about this. He thinks Xerxes is a decent player and he's done all right in the system, but he was terrible. He was booed for a reason against Newcastle because he was really poor. I don't agree with the booing. I didn't agree with it then, but he was booed because he was really, really stinking the place out, and it was one of the worst performances of a United player. Yes, the frustration was everything else cooked into that, but that was a reason why. So he played all right against Arsenal and scored a penalty in the shootout, and he got instantly transformed into a cult hero. And he's been poor ever since, but he's still maintained the status of cult hero because that's the narrative that's been built around him. What I'm saying about Luke Shaw coming out and saying, all right, it's all right to talk now that we beat Chelsea, but it's not all right. Do you know what I mean? Especially not for Luke Shaw, because he can't be talking about the standards that the club represent. And I'm not being horrible to him, but he's an example. And I know he's had his injuries, but it is also an example of the standards that have not been met. So you can't come out and talk about it. Just don't say anything. Just see out the rest of your contract. Try and do your talking on the pitch. Try and prove people wrong by doing that. The problem is that it gives more ammunition. We have a conversation about it, Paul. You're a legendary former player. You've been in the position numerous times. You are on this podcast. I try not to put you in so much of a position where I'm asking you to criticize players. It's impossible to do after we've lost a game embarrassingly. So sometimes players are going to get individualized for that. They're going to get identified as individual players and go like, they did this wrong, they did that wrong, and they shouldn't be playing because of this or that. It's difficult for the former players. It's difficult for the players who are playing. Where do you stand on that? I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion, right? Luke Shaw's entitled to come out and say something if he wants to come out and say something. But when you're in a position where your talking is best done on the pitch, where do you stand when you're, especially in Luke Shaw's position? You know what I mean?
Did he bring up the situation with Roy, or was it thrown at him?
Probably thrown at him. I wouldn't have imagined
he was thrown at him. Yeah.
He was thrown at him. Well, virtually, he's got to give it back to him. He's just got to go and throw the quit and just virtually just say, "I'm not here to talk about Roy's opinion or anyone's opinion." He should want to talk about himself virtually, and then the whole thing should then change to them talking about, and maybe the reason why they want to talk to him is about his performance, and it should flip back to how we played, because football's just one of those things. You can either, you win a game of football and then you can express yourself and show the joy, and then the following week you go and lose, and the whole context changes. That's why I'm not in football at the moment. They win games, they want to go to the fans and give it all that. The following week, you feel you still got to go to the fans, and then they're abusing you. How do you deal with that? Because that person there was clapping me, I was great. Now we're booing. And that's where football's gone now. People are not allowing anything to go easy and flow. They're looking for stories all the time. Luke's just got to then turn around and say, well, Roy's, laugh about it. Well, that's Roy. Roy is fortunate enough to have played in great Manchester United teams, but it's Manchester United now. And that's the story, really, in my opinion. You're judged off where you are now. Luke had a poor game. He's had poor games. His time at Manchester United has been poor. We can't keep always talking about his injuries, because everyone has injuries. And when he's had those, and when he's come back, has there been long moments where we go, core, how good he is. He's managed to get himself involved with England over that time, and that's because we've been lacking left backs, to be honest. But he hasn't really gone and grabbed it. Then we look at it as well. We could talk about Harry Maguire. All of a sudden, the media can't wait to say how well Harry's played. Harry shouldn't be playing. He shouldn't be in the team. De Ligt is the main player. De Ligt and Mazraoui, without those two, Manchester United are struggling in the back line. They're the main two. De Ligt with his organisation, Mazraoui with his willingness to run forward and back. That man will run himself to exhaustion. To score a goal, help score a goal, score himself, or to stop somebody. The way he worked to get that challenge back on João Pedro, that touch off of there was incredible. After the distance he run to time it, and all Chelsea fans now are trying to say, blatant, saying it should have been a penalty. You think to yourself, come on, those little bits. But those two shouldn't be playing in a Manchester United team in the moment. Shouldn't be. The manager has got young heaven now. I don't know what's happened to Martinez. I get confused what to call him. I don't know where I don't know where he is on the injury front. What's happening now? But the problem the manager's got at the moment is that I think he's letting sentiment get in the way of things. Someone's feeding him about these players and not going to step forward until he gets that back three right. De Ligt is the man in the middle. Simple, control, pass, move.
Yeah.
On the left-hand side, you're looking at Luke Shaw and you're saying to yourself, he's not quick enough. Everything, he's virtually just static in there. He's not doing enough. He's not stepping forward. He's just sitting in the hole. Everything's in front of him. We saw early in the Chelsea game, the moment the ball goes in behind, he pulls someone back because he doesn't want to run. He was outside the box. He just doesn't want to run. Harry Maguire, he has to play him in the middle. He can't put him either side because he'll be like Robinson Crusoe. He'd just have a load of air, such a big area around him, he wouldn't be able to control it. So he puts him in the middle. And we saw at Man City what happened there when he was in the middle, when he's exposed. So all I'm saying with Luke, gets around to it, Luke Shaw, just think about what you're saying and don't get involved in worrying about, talk about yourself and talk about your issues and about your game. Because at the end of it, he's under pressure in his next game because there's runners.
Yeah.
The same as Maguire, there's runners.
Yeah.
You're away from home. Everyone's scrutinising you. More so in football now than ever will because you play for Manchester United. So you are, because those players at Manchester are more scrutinised week in, week out than any player at Liverpool, than any player at Arsenal, any player at Man City. You are scrutinised. You are the story. And it's as simple as that.
No, yeah, absolutely. It is. I mean, that's football media as well. I mean, that's it. As it's always been that way. Usually, was Emily News in the Sun or Mirror, wasn't it? Like having a pop in the 80s or early 90s. Now it's Formula United players. A lot of them employed by Sky, and the narrative kind of driven there. But it is what it is. You know, even Dave and I in this position, you look at the people who supporters who host podcasts and stuff like that you've seen this week. There's like the lad who has the hair, who's been growing his hair. He got confronted at the game. You've seen another YouTuber bully a child. You know, it's just like, you've got to be aware of what you're saying all the time, saying and what you're doing. I mean, we talk about mental health, talk about the way that you talk and interact with fellow people. It's a football game, you know. We're here to, you know, talk about 11 players kicking a ball around on a pitch, anchored and tied to the history of the club that we support. You know, that's all it is. Anyway, won't go on too much about that. Dave, we'll talk about Brentford. I'll come to you first because I'll let Paul have his rant there. I said Paul had his rant. If anything sums up the point there of like putting something to someone and then responding, like the reporter who would have put the point to Luke Shaw, I'm like, I put the point to Paul Parker and Paul just had a little rant. Yeah, that's not the way that should be put across. Paul answered the comment honestly and forthright. Let's talk about Brentford. Brentford, like you said, Paul said there's a lot of runners in that side. It's been a mixed start to their season. Keith Edwards is the manager now, I think. He's succeeded Frank. They've lost a lot of players. It's a very difficult time. You will look at them and say they're a vulnerable side. I've not seen a lot of them to say this is what their identity is under Edwards. Although I would say I would look at them and think their team who are vulnerable are going down because of what they've lost. And the jarring juxtaposition that's got from the continuity that they had at the club there. Their big strength and their ability to finish mid-table and higher was due to the stability that they built in a sea of inconsistency in the other big clubs around there. They were just able to carry on floating and, you know, clever recruitment. I didn't have a lot of time to do a lot of recruitment towards the end of the window when a lot of the players were trying to force the moves. What do you make of Brentford, Dave? I mean, they will run. They will put in an honest effort against us. It almost feels like we don't know enough about Brentford, and this is a game where they would use this highlight, the exposure of this game to say this is who we are in the post-Frank era. And lucky us, we're the kind of susceptible fools who will fall right for it, right?
Yeah, I mean, these are when the fixture list came out at the start of the season. You know, you obviously look for straight away. You look for Liverpool. Now you look for Leeds because they're up. Then you look for Arsenal and City, Chelsea. But for me, how I was going to gauge the start of the season out of the first 10 games, is, as I said earlier on, was the two in the middle, and the Burnley game, and then obviously this one as well. This Brentford and this Sunderland game are going to be where we measure ourselves, which sounds crazy, but that's the position we're in right now. I think it's going to be very difficult going to Brentford. Number one, Manchester United are coming to town. They haven't had the best starts to the season. We've had this amazing ability down the years of kickstarting a lot of these teams' seasons. When we go to the ground, it's, Paul has mentioned it many, many times before. We're the biggest show in town. This is their cup final, and I hate to say that, but it is. Unless they get to a cup final, well, then that's their cup final. But up until then, this is their cup final. And the fact that we took their best player, it's going to add a little bit of extra spice to it as well. It's going to be a very, very difficult game. It really is. They haven't recruited fantastically. They are in a bit of a turmoil because, as you said, all those players, want to leave right at the very end. Didn't leave them, with a lot of time to replace players. But it's unfortunately we just don't know as Manchester United supporters who's going to turn up next weekend for Manchester United. It is going to be a very, very, very difficult game. It's a noon game, so. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to it, but I am looking forward to it. On the back of a win, will we break that hoodoo from, 2 league wins in a row for the first time ever? I think that's on the cards. I think it's going to be a difficult game. But like I said, I was a bit critical of Amorim's substitutions on Saturday. They baffled me a little bit. But, that Chelsea win it seemed to pump the players up, especially near the end. There was a lot of fight in the team near the end as well when Chelsea started to get a little bit niggly and a little bit nasty. The biggest advantage we have is we've no game between now and then. And that's going to help immensely. That's going to help with Cunha. And I think, I'm not going to predict it, but I think we'll be I think I'll be a happy man at 3:00 next Saturday. So read into that what you like, but it's going to be difficult.
Dave, that was lacking. That was really lacking conviction there. But get to that point, we're going to win. You was really struggling to get that bit out there. I must say, it was like virtually trying to wind up. Just say it, Dave. Just say it. Go on, get it off your chest. They're going to win.
No, because when I say that, Paddy Power would build 10 swimming pools on the back of me if I was a gambler. So that's why I don't make these predictions too often nowadays.
Yeah. Dave was very much the dad at Christmas who's got no idea of the present he's buying for his kids. There was he like, just know you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Oh, what's in this? Oh, wait till you open it.
Yeah, Paul, it's tough. Have you seen anything of Brentford? Can you inform Dave and I? Is there anything different with Brentford? I suppose it's a good time to go there. We don't know much about United's front line with Cunha and Mbumo and Šeško still, and that's kind of a benefit. It helps us going into this game rather than in the past when you've looked at those games against Brentford and gone, like last season, we knew we were going to get battered against Brentford. This time, or at least we don't feel that nervous about it.
I watched them when they played. I was there for the Aston Villa game, and I was going there thinking to myself, after they lost. Was it who they lose to? Was it who did we say they lost to? Forest.
Yeah.
We thought so. Well, they're going to fall apart now. They'd lost Thomas Frank. I was surprised how they were. A player who I was working, a player I really wanted to criticise as much as possible, for me was was the organ grinder, and be honest, he played so well, really, really well, was Jordan Henderson. Jordan Henderson was governing everything. To be honest, I saw it. He had more of an obvious impact in that Brentford team than what I saw with Liverpool. But the difference is that the quality of the players at Liverpool are different to what it is at Brentford. So everything about him showed. I was waiting to see an air of arrogance about him, the way, think what I've done. I didn't see it. I saw him as one of them. Brentford is a community club. When it's an easy thing to say, but trust me, it is. That club survives. A lot of people support Brentford there. They are from there. It's a fact.
Yeah.
It may be, except for Crystal Palace, the next parochial club in London. There's nobody from the east side of London who support Brentford. It just doesn't work. And so they're very much, heart on their sleeves. And then at home, that's an issue because the way the ground's built, it's a lovely little ground. To watch football there, it's brilliant, and everything's closed in. And it's mentioned by Dave, it's a big game. They played Chelsea. It was a big game for them playing against them because they want to beat the Chelsea, the Fulhams, and the QPRs. They're the sides that they just want to beat them all the time. It really bothers them about that part of London. Yeah. So that game's going to be difficult, really difficult. They play free at the back. So, and the difference is that they've got slightly better energy levels. I think they've got what I've just said at the top of this. Jordan Henderson is a leader, and he organises and he gets them moving around. Damsgaard is an initiator of everything. Bounces off of him, and he's a bit of guile around there. The two lads up front. Is it what's his name? Sharp, I can't pronounce it. Is it Sharda, I think it is, up front, Kevin Sharda. And they've got a Thiago, a big black lad up front. And he is just so physically strong, quite able, not a great touch, but they play with so much energy when they play. So it's going to be a really, really difficult game, really difficult. The bonus is that they're going in there, a position they haven't been in for a while off the back of 2 wins. Have they been convincing Manchester United? No, they haven't. 99 times out of 100, I wouldn't have made that statement. But we're in that position now where the club is, you've got to say it. Can they go there and make an amazing step forward and go and win 3 on the bounce? And at least one of those games away from home as well. Now that would make a bit of a difference. Going into the next another big game as well for them. So I see this one as a difficult game. 12:30 kickoff as well. It's like going into the land of the abyss, isn't it, really, when you're kicking off at that time? You just don't know. They're not the best games. A lot of the kind of shock results come at that time. Nothing's easy. It's like a inferior David v Goliath without Goliath being that colossal, really, at this moment in that game.
David v David.
Yeah.
The season, talking about the early kickoffs, this is another one to stick on the Grumpy Old Men pod. The early kickoffs, when you left United that season, I remember a few weeks after, would have probably been like maybe 2 months after you left United, we played Liverpool, and it was 11:15 kickoff.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, wow.
The one where Beckham scored, Cantona said it was his worst ever game. Well, maybe if we don't play at 11 a.m., Cantona will play well.
Yeah.
The French don't get up until 11 o'clock, so probably what the problem was. I have no idea what time the French get up, so don't phone in. Anyway, that's us for this week. If you listen next week, according to Dave, you might be pleasantly surprised. We're talking about 2 wins in a row. And we all want that lad to get his haircut, don't we? I've got nothing bad to say about him. He'll be fine eventually. Hopefully we all will be, and, just to prove it, Dave, Paul and I will also go on a no growth hair until we win 5 games in a row as well. That's how committed we are to the bit. Anyway, that's it for this week. If you've enjoyed the pod, if you can give us a like or subscribe on the platform you're listening on, leave a comment below and we'll still reply to them after the show as well. Could subscribe on the audio platform, would really, really appreciate that. Have a great week, guys, and we'll be back next week to talk about Dave's pleasant surprise